folks. This is Bob with BBD News with geopolitical views. Continuing with my discourse on politics and what's happening as we focus on our focus is taken on the upcoming budget. You have had the continuing protests of the farmers. But what's, like I said the other day, India, as everybody's been saying, really, in order to defend itself against China and achieve its global positioning and achieve its perform to its potential, is going to need a number of friends. It's really not going to be able to do it alone. And let's be very clear, Russia isn't going to be that friend. It's not going to offer us anything, because we need economics, we need export drives, we need technology, we need foreign direct investment for all these purposes, and we need our students to go and get educated. This is not going to happen, no way, in this USSR, and neither is going to happen in China. China, on the other hand, just continues to gut everybody's economy as it's done India's, right? So after the United States, as I mentioned the last time, what's the next one in play? The next one in play obviously is Europe. There's a lot of stuff happening in Europe, right? There's firstly Brexit, but after Brexit, there is basically Europe. Europe is essentially being driven by Germany and France, right? France, as I stated in my post yesterday, my broadcast yesterday, we have a geostrategic relationship. They are an Indo-Pacific power. They're aligned with us. They're suppliers of a major defense technology. Besides that, they're also really trustworthy partners, especially after getting the Rafale. And you're looking at, no matter what anybody's saying, that seems that Dassault is doing certain amount of manufacturing and assembly in India of those fighter craft, and they've stepped up to the plate when we needed them, right? The other is Germany. Germany has always never pulled its weight. That's basically because it's been driven by Angela Merkel. Angela Merkel really doesn't pay much heed to, it's driven by the markets, it seems, has overlooked all the other, has followed a fairly hypocritical stand as far as India and China is concerned. It seems to raise all these human rights issues along with the EU as far as India is concerned, but as far as China is concerned, because essentially of their two major car companies, which is Mercedes and BMW, they have really kowtowed to the Chinese, right? But there are things that have changed in China, in Germany too. As you see, Merkel is out in 6 months. It says, EU braced for Germany without Merkel. Frontrunner to be CDU head rails against bloc's recovery fund and greater integration. But here's important: is the CDU without, maybe led by the CDU, but it's going to need the Green Party. If the Green Party is involved, they're going to get much tougher on China, right? That's advantage India. Says Germany takes next step towards post-Merkel era. Her party's new leader may be the next chancellor. Merkel's departure gives Germany a chance to step up. This is the most important part, right? It says, life after Mutti will be different. She was rightly wary of Donald Trump, and under a different German leader, a UK-EU trade deal might have been harder to reach. Her successor should respond to long-standing US demands to take on more of the West defense burden. An even thornier issue and a criticism of her tenure is whether on relations with China, the country's economic interests may take priority over human rights, and they should not. He says basically the human rights should take front and center. That's a big change, right? But what's happening in the United Kingdom? After the Chatham report, which kind of clubbed India a democracy, right? A democracy following the similar pattern, on the patterns of the United Kingdom, because they owned us. So I just find this so hypocritical of this white leftover colonial hangover in the United Kingdom, that they have the audacity to club us with Russia, China and Turkey. I'm not sure what Chatham was thinking, because one thing is very crystal clear, right? Britain is again trying to get relevance, just like when Maggie Thatcher came in. It was irrelevant and a declining power at that stage. Maggie Power went to war with the Falklands and then tied itself to the hip with the United States and Reagan, and history is what it is. United Kingdom again became an important player in the global arena, and that's exactly what Johnson is trying to do now, right? However, it's a challenge for them, right? Why? Because, at the end of the day, in the global sweepstakes, you got to think beyond what's inimical and when you go beyond this, global Britain must agree its ethical red lines. So this is the part that is going to be difficult for them to get everybody else to swallow because of the hypocritical and cynical views about how they kind of club freedom fighters and as terrorists and allow them a free play, and have always allowed them a free play, right? It says backbenchers are yearning for moral leadership from number 10. Well, what is moral, right? I'm not sure that's right, and as Saeed Akbaruddin rightly points out, is global Britain inimical to India? There are disturbing signals from both segments of British polity and civil society. India will need to assess the UK's position carefully. It says, principally, the report advises that the UK, instead of trying to reincarnate as a miniature great power, should style itself as a broker of solutions to global challenges. It lists 6 such global issues to focus on: protecting liberal democracy, promoting international peace and security, tackling climate change, enabling greater global health resilience, championing global tax transparency and equitable economic growth, and defending cyberspace. It suggests more investment in diplomacy, leveraging of soft power, financial strength, and membership of the world's multilateral organizations to make this transition by 2030. But if it thinks it's going to do all this without India, it's got a hope in here. But a number of these points, right? It's inimical to India. Let me just tell you why. Because of the fact that we are also joined together with the hip. They have written our history, essentially. And they have actually written our geography. This is the most important part. So India's biggest disputes, whether it's Kashmir or whether it's China and Tibet, are underwritten by either the McMahon line or the Radcliffe line, both by the British. So you can imagine that it is the United Kingdom, whether we like it or not, it's going to be critical to us. But more importantly, for the United Kingdom to get relevance, it ain't going to do it on the back of itself. It's a declining economy. It doesn't have the same power. But India can, if it plays its cards right, it can kind of carry Britain to that relevance. Without that, Britain can't get to that relevance with Australia, can't get to the relevance with Canada. It does want to use the Commonwealth to get there. But Commonwealth, folks, without India is an insignificant part of the global phenomena. India is going to be absolutely critical, just as you see was in the healthcare issue. AstraZeneca is producing a lot of vaccines in Serum Institution. And look at this. Jab supplier gets shot at redemption. India's work hard takes pivotal role in Britain's COVID vaccinations after run-in with the US watchdog. So even in the United Kingdom, work hard with its plant in Britain is the one that is supplying them the vaccines. India everywhere, right? And this is, like I said, and the politics of both these countries are kind of entwined, especially because of the Mirpuri Muslims that live there and kind of drive the politics in the United Kingdom, plus the Khalsas who are pro-Khalistanis. And this is what you have here. You have Vijay Mallya sitting there waiting to be extradited. You have British man in Indian jail faces death penalty. So this is all kinds of stuff that we really cannot disentangle. But at the end of the day, both these countries can work together, should work together, and India especially can provide the huge leg up that Britain needs to gain relevance. Chatham report is hardly does a huge amount of disservice to how India can play a role in the advancement of UK interests. The other part of the world where there's a lot of churn, which is critical for India's geopolitical future, is the Middle East. As a Reuters report some days back said, twin Baghdad blast leave at least 32 dead. 2 men blew themselves up in a crowded Baghdad market, and it's just like the reactivation of the IS. And I'm told yesterday's report suggests that the US bombers went and bombed I think they got the terrorists who did that, right? Then you have this. Tehran demands explanation after Indonesia seizes Iranian tanker over illegal oil transfer. This seems to be tit for tat. The Southeast Asian nations seem to be getting it together. Iran, so Indonesia picked up Iran because I believe the Philippines, if you remember, the Korean tanker is stuck up in Iran. It's an interesting play here, right? This is really fascinating. Iran may participate in IOR Defense Ministries event. Maldives and Comoros among likely participants in February. Now, this is interesting. Iran, like I said, Russia is trying to cover its bets as far as China is concerned, even though it continues to push us to kind of re-engage with China by trying to set up a trilateral between India, Russia, and Japan. Similarly here, Iran now having fallen into the Chinese lap is probably having second thoughts, because I'm seeing that they think that the bridge now that they might need to Biden, India might be able to play that role. So watch this space on Iran, right? People who had written off Iran as something that's fallen into the Chinese lap may have said it too quickly, right? And then what do we have here? What's happening is, if you remember, interesting, Morocco was one of the few people who got 1 million doses of the AstraZeneca, even though for commercial purposes. You wonder why Morocco. Remember Morocco. Morocco just did recognize Israel. Has that got something to do with this? Just under the push of the United States, Morocco recognized Israel, as you all know that. So this is in play. And like I said, Morocco is an extremely important place. That's another important thing that's happening. And Qatar is stepping up to the plate, right? And our foreign minister was just in Qatar. Egypt and Qatar plan to resume relations. Then Qatar urges dialogue between Persian Gulf states. Iran as Biden takes over. So this is important. Qatar is also stepping up to the plate. And India seems to have played its cards right all over the place, right? Turkey seems to be stuck though, right? Trying to overextend itself. Turkey and EU stuck in painful embrace. While at the same time he continues to overextend, Turkey pushes into Africa with aid, trade, and a dose of drama. Israel and the United Arab Emirates are moving at an extremely fast pace, and that's again advantage India. In a historic move, Israel opens embassy in UAE. UAE-Israel peace treaty opens doors to big business deals. India should be absolutely watching this. The downside though of Biden coming in here. Biden administration places hold on arms sales to UAE and Saudi Arabia. Now this, I think, might have not the required effect. I think those sales that were promised by Trump actually served a huge purpose and should go ahead. And look at why Dubai, like I said, is extremely critical to India. 1 million Indians who flew home due to COVID returned to UAE. Gone back, folks. And there is a new citizenship deal. For the first time, foreigners can become citizens. And the biggest advantage is obviously going to be the Indian diaspora that is sitting there. Advantage them. But look, this is I thought was fascinating. UAE Air Force to help 3 Rafale fighters reach India, 7 more in April. It says India and the UAE are expected to take bilateral ties to the next level, with the two countries along with France discussing conducting trilateral military exercises. Now this, folks, I think is a game changer, and this is something that will actually get the alarm bells ringing in none other than Pakistan. Folks, I think that while the Indian situation domestically seems to be not the best, not in the most rosy of places, geostrategically we seem to be positioning our cards well. However, all this is absolutely going to be of no good unless we get our economy up and running. So folks, my next week is on the upcoming budget, and which is going to be the most critical thing going forward for us. Jai Hind.